Chapter 1: A New Adventure Begins. Huckleberry Finn, known as Huck, is a young boy living in the small town of St. Petersburg, Missouri. After a series of prior adventures, Huck is taken in by the kind-hearted widow Douglas and her stern sister, Miss Watson. The widow Douglas is determined to provide Huck with a stable home and instill in him proper manners and a sense of religion. She teaches him to dress neatly, say his prayers, and attend school. Huck, however, finds the restrictions of this civilized life unbearable. He feels confined by the rules and routines, yearning for the freedom of his previous adventures. Despite the widow's best efforts, Huck's wild spirit remains untamed. He sneaks out at night, preferring the company of his friend Tom Sawyer and the thrill of their mischievous escapades. Huck's longing for adventure intensifies as he dreams of escaping the suffocating propriety of his new life. This desire for freedom is a defining aspect of Huck's character, showcasing his independent nature and resistance to societal norms. One fateful night, Huck's world is upended when his estranged father, Pap Finn, reappears in town. Pap is a disheveled, violent drunkard who cares little for Huck's well-being and more for the money Huck recently acquired from his adventures with Tom Sawyer. The prospect of gaining custody of Huck and access to his money drives Pap to demand that Huck be handed over to him. Despite the widow Douglas's attempts to protect Huck and keep him away from his father, Pap's threats and the legal system's limitations leave Huck vulnerable. Pap eventually succeeds in taking Huck, dragging him to a remote cabin in the woods. Isolated from the town and stripped of the modest comforts provided by the widow Douglas, Huck endures his father's erratic and abusive behavior. Pap locks Huck in the cabin whenever he leaves, adding to the boy's sense of imprisonment. The physical and emotional abuse Huck suffers only strengthens his resolve to escape and reclaim his freedom. Driven to desperation by Pap's cruelty, Huck devises a daring plan to fake his own death. He carefully stages a scene to make it appear as though he has been murdered, using a pig to create a trail of blood. After completing the grim task, Huck escapes from the cabin, taking a canoe to reach Jackson's Island in the Mississippi River. There, hidden away, he begins a new chapter of his life. Huck relishes his newfound freedom, free from the constraints of civilization and his father's tyranny. The escape marks the beginning of Huck's adventure down the Mississippi River, a journey that will test his courage, resourcefulness, and moral compass. His flight from Pap not only signifies a physical liberation but also symbolizes Huck's rejection of a life dictated by others, setting the stage for the profound experiences and personal growth that await him. Chapter 2: The Escape and Jim's Secret. After escaping from his father's abusive grip, Huck Finn finds solace on Jackson's Island in the middle of the Mississippi River. For a few days, he enjoys the peace and freedom of his new refuge, savoring the sense of safety and adventure. However, his solitude is soon interrupted when he stumbles upon Jim, Miss Watson's runaway slave. At first, Huck is shocked and unsure about what to do. In the society Huck has grown up in, helping a runaway slave is considered a severe offense, punishable by law. However, Huck's innate sense of fairness and his growing disillusionment with societal norms make him hesitant to turn Jim in. The two share their stories, and Huck learns that Jim fled because Miss Watson planned to sell him downriver, where conditions for slaves were even harsher. Jim's fear and desperation strike a chord with Huck, who begins to see Jim not as a slave, but as a human being and a companion in search of freedom. Despite his initial reservations, Huck decides to join forces with Jim. They form a tentative alliance, pooling their resources and planning their journey together. Huck and Jim set off on a homemade raft, aiming to drift down the Mississippi River toward the Free States, where Jim hopes to find liberty and Huck seeks adventure away from the constraints of civilization. Their journey is fraught with danger from the outset. The river, with its strong currents and hidden hazards, presents constant physical challenges. One night, they encounter a wrecked steamboat caught on a snag in the river. Driven by curiosity and the prospect of finding supplies, Huck and Jim board the wreck. To their horror, they discover a gang of robbers planning to kill one of their own. Huck's quick thinking allows them to escape undetected, but the close call underscores the perilous nature of their journey. Huck and Jim's narrow escape from the wrecked steamboat strengthens their bond. They realize they must rely on each other to survive. Huck begins to admire Jim's wisdom and resilience, while Jim appreciates Huck's resourcefulness and courage. Their mutual dependence fosters a deepening friendship that transcends the racial prejudices of their time. As they continue their journey, Huck grapples with his conscience. Raised in a society that views helping a runaway slave as immoral, he feels guilty about aiding Jim. However, his time with Jim reveals the humanity and dignity of his companion, challenging Huck's ingrained beliefs. This moral conflict becomes a central theme of Huck's internal journey, highlighting his growing awareness of the flaws and injustices in societal norms. Their days on the raft are a mix of tranquility and tension. The serene river and the simplicity of their life on the water provide moments of peace and contemplation. Huck and Jim share stories, dreams, and fears, deepening their understanding and respect for each other. Yet, the constant threat of discovery looms over them, as they must avoid towns and passing boats to evade capture. The duo's camaraderie grows as they face and overcome various challenges. They navigate through a dense fog, nearly losing each other in the process. Huck feels an overwhelming sense of relief and joy when they are reunited, realizing how much Jim's friendship means to him. Jim, in turn, shows unwavering loyalty and kindness, treating Huck as an equal despite the societal norms dictating otherwise. As they drift further south, the river becomes both a symbol of freedom and a reminder of the dangers they face. They learn to be cautious of every encounter, knowing that their fate depends on remaining undetected. The bond between Huck and Jim, forged through shared adversity and mutual reliance, becomes the cornerstone of their journey. Together, they navigate not only the physical challenges of the river but also the deeper moral and emotional currents that shape their path. Their journey is not merely a physical escape from captivity but a profound exploration of friendship, humanity, and the quest for freedom. Huck's evolving perception of Jim and his internal struggle against societal norms set the stage for the transformative experiences that lie ahead. As they float toward an uncertain future, Huck and Jim's alliance and growing trust in each other become a beacon of hope against the backdrop of a divided and prejudiced world. Chapter 3: Life on the River. Huck and Jim's journey down the Mississippi River is a blend of serene beauty and constant peril, shaping their bond and challenging their resolve. The river, with its majestic flow and tranquil landscapes, offers them a sense of peace and freedom they have never known. Floating along the broad expanse of water, they are free from the constraints and prejudices of society. They fish, cook over campfires, and sleep under the stars, reveling in the simplicity and tranquility of their nomadic life. However, the river is not always a benevolent force. One night, a thick fog descends upon them, obscuring their vision and separating Huck and Jim. The disorienting fog engulfs Huck, and he drifts aimlessly, calling out for Jim. The fear of losing his friend gnaws at him, highlighting the deep bond that has formed between them. After hours of searching and shouting, Huck finally hears Jim's voice and follows it back to the raft. Their reunion is a moment of profound relief and joy as they celebrate the renewal of their companionship. The fog incident leaves a lasting impact on Huck. He realizes the depth of his attachment to Jim and the significance of their journey together. Despite societal norms dictating that Jim is merely a runaway slave, Huck sees him as a friend and equal. This realization intensifies Huck's internal conflict. Raised to believe that helping a runaway slave is a sin, Huck wrestles with his conscience, torn between the values instilled in him and his own sense of justice and loyalty to Jim. This moral dilemma becomes a recurring theme, shaping Huck's character and influencing his decisions. Their peaceful existence is abruptly disrupted when they encounter two conmen, who introduce themselves as the Duke and the King. The Duke and the King are drifters and swindlers, constantly scheming to make a quick profit by exploiting the gullibility and generosity of the townspeople along the river. They manipulate Huck and Jim into allowing them to join the raft, quickly taking advantage of their hospitality. The Duke, a younger man, claims to be the Duke of Bridgewater, while the older man asserts he is the Dauphin, the rightful heir to the French throne. Their grandiose titles are transparent fabrications, but Huck and Jim play along, recognizing that resistance could lead to trouble. The conmen's presence on the raft transforms their journey, adding a new layer of tension and complexity. The Duke and the King engage in a series of scams as they travel from town to town. They stage a shabby rendition of Shakespearean plays, swindle grieving families with bogus inheritance claims, and even pose as reformed pirates seeking charitable donations. Huck is reluctantly drawn into their schemes, forced to participate to avoid endangering himself and Jim. The conmen's unscrupulous behavior disgusts Huck, but he feels powerless to stop them. One of the most troubling episodes occurs when the Duke and the King decide to put on a theatrical performance, grandly advertised as the Royal Nonsuch. They deceive the townspeople with promises of a grand show, only to provide a crude and farcical spectacle that leaves the audience feeling cheated. Despite their anger, the townspeople's embarrassment prevents them from warning others, allowing the conmen to escape with the proceeds. Throughout these exploits, Huck's disdain for the Duke and the King grows. He is appalled by their lack of morality and the ease with which they exploit others. At the same time, he is increasingly protective of Jim, aware that any misstep could lead to their discovery and capture. Huck's cunning and quick thinking often save them from the conmen's more reckless plans, showcasing his resourcefulness and deepening his moral awakening. Huck's internal struggle reaches a critical point when the Duke and the King hatch a plan to impersonate the brothers of Peter Wilkes, a recently deceased man with a substantial inheritance. They aim to defraud Wilkes' grieving family, posing as his long-lost brothers from England. Huck is sickened by the scheme, particularly when he witnesses the genuine grief of Wilkes' relatives. Determined to thwart the conmen, Huck decides to steal the hidden money and hide it in Peter Wilkes' coffin, hoping to expose the fraud without directly confronting the Duke and the King. The complexities of life on the river, interspersed with moments of serene beauty and stark danger, push Huck to the limits of his moral and emotional capacity. His friendship with Jim and his disdain for the Duke and the King's deceptions catalyze Huck's growth from a carefree boy into a young man grappling with profound ethical dilemmas. Each encounter and every challenge along the river shapes his understanding of right and wrong, pushing him toward a personal code of ethics that defies the flawed morality of the society he has left behind. As Huck and Jim continue their journey, the river remains both a symbol of freedom and a stage for their ongoing struggle against the forces that seek to confine and exploit them. Chapter 4: The Conmen's Schemes. The Duke and the King, ever eager to swindle and deceive, devise one of their most audacious plans yet. They learn of Peter Wilkes, a recently deceased man who has left behind a substantial inheritance for his brothers from England, Harvey and William. Seizing the opportunity, the Duke and the King decide to impersonate these brothers to claim the inheritance. Their scheme involves not only taking the money but also exploiting the grief and trust of Wilkes' family. Upon arriving in the town where Peter Wilkes lived, the Duke and the King put on an elaborate performance to convince the townspeople and Wilkes' family of their authenticity. The King, posing as Harvey Wilkes, and the Duke, pretending to be the mute and crippled William, are welcomed with open arms by the unsuspecting family. The genuine warmth and trust of the Wilkes sisters, Mary Jane, Susan, and Joanna, deeply disturb Huck, who is increasingly repulsed by the conmen's heartlessness. As the Duke and the King execute their deceitful plan, Huck becomes determined to thwart them. He is particularly moved by Mary Jane, whose kind and trusting nature makes the conmen's deceit all the more unbearable. Huck's growing moral clarity and sense of justice propel him into action. He decides to steal the money the Duke and the King have obtained and hide it to prevent them from getting away with their scheme. One night, Huck sneaks into the King's room and takes the gold coins, carefully avoiding detection. He hides the money in Peter Wilkes' coffin, reasoning that it will be safe there and that its discovery during the funeral will expose the con men. However, this plan goes awry when the coffin is sealed before anyone finds the money. Huck is now caught in a desperate race against time to prevent the Duke and the King from escaping with their ill-gotten gains. The arrival of the real Harvey and William Wilkes throws the town into chaos. The true heirs, suspicious and bewildered, confront the impostors. The Duke and the King, though initially able to maintain their facade, begin to falter under the pressure. A series of tense confrontations and investigations ensue, with the townspeople and the real brothers seeking to uncover the truth. Huck's efforts to expose the conmen are both daring and dangerous. He subtly tries to guide the Wilkes sisters and the townspeople towards the truth, without revealing his own role in the theft and deception. As suspicions grow, the situation becomes increasingly volatile. The King and the Duke, sensing their impending downfall, become desperate and more ruthless. In the midst of this chaos, Huck sees an opportunity for escape. He urges Jim, who has been hiding nearby, to prepare for a swift departure. The two manage to slip away from the town, returning to their raft with a sense of relief and newfound resolve. However, their escape is short-lived. The Duke and the King, relentless in their pursuit of wealth and revenge, manage to track them down once again. The conmen's reappearance is a bitter blow to Huck and Jim, who had hoped they had seen the last of them. The Duke and the King, now even more determined to maintain their grip over Huck and Jim, force them to continue aiding in their schemes. Their presence casts a dark shadow over Huck and Jim's journey, turning their quest for freedom into a dangerous and precarious endeavor. Huck's disgust with the Duke and the King deepens with each passing day. He recognizes that their unrelenting greed and immorality not only endanger him and Jim, but also reveal the worst aspects of human nature. His experiences with the conmen solidify his resolve to protect Jim and uphold his own moral code, even in the face of overwhelming adversity. As they continue down the river, Huck and Jim remain vigilant, constantly seeking opportunities to rid themselves of the Duke and the King. Their journey becomes a delicate balancing act, navigating the treacherous waters of the Mississippi and the even more perilous schemes of their unwanted companions. Huck's cunning and Jim's steadfast loyalty are their greatest assets as they strive to reclaim their autonomy and continue their pursuit of freedom. The ordeal with the Duke and the King marks a significant turning point for Huck. He becomes more resolute in his quest to do what is right, regardless of the societal norms that have shaped his upbringing. The bond between Huck and Jim strengthens, rooted in mutual respect and shared experiences. Together, they navigate the moral and physical challenges of their journey, driven by the hope of a better future free from the shadows of deceit and exploitation. As they move forward, Huck's encounters with the Duke and the King serve as a powerful reminder of the importance of integrity and the courage to stand up against injustice. The river, ever-present and ever-changing, continues to carry them towards an uncertain destiny, but Huck's determination and Jim's unwavering spirit guide them through the darkness towards the promise of freedom and friendship. Chapter 5: Betrayal and Rescue. As Huck and Jim continue their journey down the Mississippi River, the Duke and the King become increasingly desperate for money. Their schemes and cons have yielded little profit recently, and their frustration mounts. In a final act of betrayal, the conmen decide to sell Jim to a local farmer, claiming he is a runaway slave. The promise of a quick profit blinds them to the cruelty and treachery of their actions. They collect the money and leave, abandoning Huck and Jim to their fates. Huck is devastated when he discovers that Jim has been sold. This betrayal by the Duke and the King feels like a personal failure. Over the course of their journey, Jim has become more than just a traveling companion. He is a friend and a surrogate father figure to Huck. Huck's heart aches with guilt and sorrow, but he is also faced with a profound moral dilemma. Society has taught him that helping a runaway slave is wrong and sinful, but his conscience tells him otherwise. In the depths of his despair, Huck grapples with the conflicting voices of societal norms and his own emerging sense of justice. He fears eternal damnation for aiding Jim, but the thought of abandoning his friend to a life of bondage is unbearable. This internal conflict reaches a climax when Huck makes a momentous decision: he will save Jim, even if it means condemning himself to hell. With this choice, Huck rejects the moral hypocrisy of the society he has grown up in, embracing his own ethical judgment. Huck learns that Jim is being held at the Phelps farm, which, by a stroke of fate, belongs to Tom Sawyer's relatives. Determined to rescue Jim, Huck heads to the farm, his mind racing with plans and uncertainties. Upon arriving, he pretends to be Tom Sawyer, who is expected to visit the Phelps family. This deception allows Huck to gain the trust and hospitality of Aunt Sally and Uncle Silas Phelps, who welcome him warmly. Soon after, the real Tom Sawyer arrives, and Huck explains the situation to him. Tom, ever the adventurer and lover of elaborate schemes, is thrilled at the prospect of a daring rescue mission. He agrees to help Huck free Jim, but insists on making the plan as complex and theatrical as possible, adding unnecessary complications and risks. Despite Huck's reservations, he goes along with Tom's elaborate plan, recognizing that Tom's creativity and audacity might actually help them succeed. Tom's plan involves a series of outrageous and intricate steps. They dig a tunnel into Jim's cabin, communicate with him through secret messages, and gather various items needed for the escape. Tom insists on recreating scenarios from adventure novels, much to Huck's frustration. However, Huck appreciates Tom's loyalty and ingenuity, even if his methods are overly elaborate. As they put their plan into action, Huck and Tom face numerous challenges. They must avoid the suspicions of the Phelps family and the local community, all while ensuring Jim remains hopeful and cooperative. Tom's intricate schemes include baking a rope ladder into a pie, crafting a coat of arms for Jim, and making Jim endure absurd trials to mirror the adventures of prisoners in romantic tales. Despite the absurdity, the plan progresses, fueled by Tom's enthusiasm and Huck's determination. The boys manage to keep the Phelps family in the dark, leveraging their creativity and quick thinking to overcome obstacles. Jim, though puzzled by the unnecessary complications, trusts Huck and Tom, holding on to the hope of freedom. The rescue mission culminates in a dramatic and chaotic escape. Just as they are about to free Jim, their plan is nearly thwarted by the unexpected arrival of townspeople. In the ensuing commotion, Tom is shot in the leg, adding a new layer of urgency and danger to their flight. Huck and Jim carry the injured Tom, evading capture and making their way to safety. In the aftermath of the escape, Tom reveals that Miss Watson, Jim's owner, had passed away and freed Jim in her will. This revelation renders their elaborate rescue plan unnecessary but underscores the lengths they went to for Jim's freedom. Jim is officially a free man, and Huck is overwhelmed with relief and gratitude. As Tom recuperates from his wound, Huck reflects on the journey they've undertaken. He recognizes the profound impact Jim has had on his life, teaching him lessons about friendship, loyalty, and the inherent dignity of all people. Huck's decision to save Jim, despite the societal condemnation it might bring, marks a significant step in his moral development. With Jim free and their adventure drawing to a close, Huck contemplates his future. Aunt Sally offers to adopt and civilize him, but Huck, ever the independent spirit, decides to head west. He is determined to seek new adventures and live on his own terms, away from the constraints and hypocrisies of society. Jim's freedom, achieved through a combination of Huck's courage and Tom's ingenuity, represents a triumph of personal morality over societal injustice. As they part ways, Huck and Jim's bond remains unbroken, a testament to the transformative power of friendship and the enduring quest for freedom. Chapter 6: Freedom and Reflection. The night of Jim's escape from the Phelps farm is filled with chaos and tension. Tom Sawyer's elaborate and theatrical plan, full of unnecessary complications and dramatics, reaches its climax. Despite the absurdity, Tom's enthusiasm and Huck's determination drive the plan forward. As they finally free Jim from his makeshift prison, the noise and commotion attract the attention of the townspeople, who quickly gather to thwart what they believe is a dangerous jailbreak. During the frantic escape, Tom is shot in the leg by one of the townspeople. The injury adds a grave urgency to their flight. Huck and Jim, displaying remarkable bravery and loyalty, manage to carry Tom to safety despite the increasing risk of being captured. Jim's willingness to stay and help Tom, even though it puts his own freedom at risk, deeply moves Huck and reaffirms the strong bond of friendship and mutual respect that has grown between them. Once they reach a safe distance, Huck and Jim do their best to tend to Tom's wound. They eventually find refuge and, with great difficulty, make their way back to the Phelps farm. Jim's presence initially causes alarm, but the truth about Miss Watson's will soon comes to light. Tom, ever the dramatic storyteller, finally reveals that Miss Watson had passed away and, feeling remorseful, had freed Jim in her will. This revelation is met with mixed emotions. The Phelps family, although initially shocked and confused, eventually come to terms with the news. Jim's official status as a free man is a moment of immense relief and joy for all involved, especially for Huck. The moral and physical trials they endure together are vindicated by this newfound freedom. As Tom recuperates from his wound under Aunt Sally and Uncle Silas's care, Huck takes time to reflect on the journey they've undertaken. The adventures along the Mississippi River, the trials and tribulations, and the moments of profound connection with Jim have all profoundly impacted Huck. He recognizes the injustice and hypocrisy of the society he has been a part of and rejects its flawed moral compass. Jim, who began as a runaway slave in Huck's eyes, has become a symbol of dignity, resilience, and humanity. Aunt Sally, moved by Huck's loyalty and the ordeal he has endured, offers to adopt him and civilize him. She promises to provide him with a stable home and a proper upbringing. However, Huck, true to his free-spirited nature, recoils at the thought of being confined and subjected to societal norms once again. The very idea of being civilized, as he puts it, feels like a loss of the freedom he has fought so hard to attain. Huck decides to strike out on his own, yearning for the open spaces and uncharted territories of the West. He dreams of new adventures, unencumbered by the restrictions and expectations of society. Huck's decision to head west symbolizes his rejection of the societal constraints and injustices he has come to despise. It is a declaration of his desire to live life on his own terms, guided by his own moral compass rather than the flawed values of the world he leaves behind. As he prepares to depart, Huck's thoughts are a mix of sadness and excitement. He is sad to leave behind friends and familiar faces, but is excited about the promise of new experiences and the allure of the unknown. Jim's freedom, hard-won and deeply cherished, provides Huck with a sense of closure and fulfillment. Their journey together has taught him invaluable lessons about friendship, loyalty, and the innate worth of every individual, regardless of societal labels. The Phelps family bids Huck farewell with a mix of understanding and reluctance. Aunt Sally's eyes are filled with concern, but she respects Huck's decision, knowing that his spirit cannot be easily confined. Huck's departure is marked by a poignant sense of freedom and self-determination. He is no longer a boy running away from troubles, but a young man venturing toward a future shaped by his own choices and values. As Huck sets off toward the horizon, the Mississippi River continues to flow behind him, a constant reminder of the journey he has undertaken and the adventures that lie ahead. The river, with its twists and turns, symbolized the unpredictability and fluidity of life. Huck's path forward, though uncertain, is filled with the promise of new discoveries and the unbounded freedom he so deeply cherishes. Huck's story does not conclude with a final destination, but with the promise of more adventures on the horizon. His journey reflects the universal quest for freedom, identity, and moral clarity. As he heads west, Huck embodies the spirit of adventure and the relentless pursuit of a life defined by integrity and self-determination. His tale is a testament to the enduring human spirit and the timeless search for a place where one can live authentically and freely. And so, Huck's journey ends not with a settled life but with the open road and the endless possibilities it brings. He moves forward with the lessons of his past and the hope of new horizons, forever the adventurous and independent soul who cannot be tamed.